Democrats are advancing a new tax proposal targeting billionaires and ultra millionaires as debates grow over federal deficits and economic inequalities. Joining us now is the Center Square's Brett Rowland. Brett, thanks so much for joining us. I think starting out, it would be great to talk a little bit about what is this proposal, who is supporting it, and what exactly would this proposal do?
Okay, so we have to start even earlier than that. We have to back up even more. So the reason that I started writing about these is there was a tax foundation report that came out in April that looked at every major tax package before Congress and found that none of them, it looked at 9 tax packages, found that none of them would put the U.S. on a sustainable path towards erasing the debt and deficit. So not wealth taxes, not tariffs, not raising the rates on the rich, none of it would close the gap. So we have to start there. So taxpayers are still going to be on the hook. But the newest proposals get really interesting. So some of them we've seen before. Bernie Sanders is asking for a 5% annual wealth tax on anyone worth over $1 billion. Elizabeth Warren wants 2 to 3% on anyone over 50 million, which is quite a bit less. It sounds like these could bring in big money. But Europe has already tried this experiment and they haven't had great results. Those are pretty telling for taxpayers too. So everyone who thinks that someone else is going to foot the bill is probably wrong.
Yeah. And like you said, we have Sanders and Warren in support of this. What exactly are they saying to kind of push forward their acts, what they're proposing, and how much revenue are supporters hoping they can generate out of this, or have they generated revenue for support of this?
So they have, especially Warren and Sanders, have some good numbers. They've essentially said that the Sanders proposal, which is the 5% annual tax on anyone worth over $1 billion, they're saying that could. So Sanders' own people came up with a number of 4.4 trillion, which is a lot of money. Two other numbers are worth considering. The Tax Foundation puts it much lower, around 3.3 trillion, and AEI, the American Enterprise Institute, puts it around 2.3 trillion. So there's some real differences in numbers there and just how much it'll bring in. And most of these are raised revenue for a short period of time, and then avoidance really kicks in. And depending on how much people try to avoid these taxes is really how much we'll get. So that's where the struggle comes in estimating the revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, we have a graphic here kind of breaking down what you just highlighted here. As you said, these billionaire and millionaire taxes, these are the tax proposals. Make billionaires pay their fair share act, 5% annual wealth tax on net worth exceeding $1 billion, ultra millionaire tax, introducing by Senator Warren, 2% annual tax on household wealth. Now, you said that taxpayers are still footing the bill. It's not actually impacting that 0.001% of people across America. Speak to that a little bit more.
So right now, these are just proposals in Congress. Americans are still paying taxes. They're also paying tariffs. They're paying sales taxes. They get hit a lot of different ways. So Americans aren't really feeling a break here, but it is, I think, interesting that everybody else wants someone else to pay the bill, the tax bill. No one really wants to pay it themselves. And that there's this belief that somehow something will come along that will fix this. The expert I talked to at the Tax Foundation said there's going to have to be both entitlement reform, so looking at Social Security and Medicare, as well as probably new revenue sources coming in, and that essentially here we're trying. Democrats are proposing a solution that's been tried in Europe. We've seen how it fared over there. It wasn't great, and now we're trying to propose it again here. So. In the meantime, taxpayers are going to have to keep going with the status quo until we see some real movement in Washington one way or the other.
Yeah, and the expert you spoke to, like you said, highlights that Europe tried it out, didn't work so well, but some countries in Europe are still using it. What did he have to say about that?
So there's a couple, and Spain is one example. But Spain's wealth tax brings in very little money, just 0.2% of GDP. So the wealth taxes certainly can bring in money, and they will for a short period of time. But it looks like avoidance strategies and sort of moving money around with which wealthy people are in a good position to do, can skirt a lot of these wealth taxes and sort of take some of the bite or the revenue out of these proposals.
Yeah. And on top of that, I think something your report highlighted is the critics are saying that there's some question about the constitutionality, or it's going to face some litigation. Could you speak to a little bit more about that? What does the Constitution say, and why is there some concern there?
Okay, so there's questions about what counts as income. Now, some of the proposals from Democrats have proposed treating like capital gains and other forms of maybe unrealized financial windfalls as taxing those. Now, there's a good amount of debate over whether this can go forward. Some people say it's not income till it's realized, but there's other tax law, and as you can imagine, a lot of people have money riding on this and are interested in this. So this hasn't been fully determined by the courts, but certainly Democrats seem to be willing to challenge it in the courts and willing to take it that direction. That's what they've proposed so far, and it looks like there could be a way forward, even if it gets sticky.
And what are the next steps for this now that it's been proposed? It seems like there's some back and forth, and what are the American people expecting from this proposal?
So, of all of these proposals, we haven't seen one that's really gained traction and seems on the verge of passing. But and Congress has shown that it remains starkly divided. Republicans have a narrow majority. The midterms, Democrats are going to look to reset that in the midterms. So all of these changes and all these proposals could come as the makeup of Congress changes. And as maybe we have more votes for one side or the other, but there hasn't been real movement on any of these yet. Those are just proposals in an election year, so we'll have to wait and see what Congress does and what they gather behind.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll definitely be tracking that. The Center Square's Brett Rowland, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. For more stories like that, seeing what's coming out of Congress, you can go to our website at thecentersquare.com.